Welcome back to theCUBE, broadcasting here at the New York Stock Exchange. This is our Mixture of Experts series with NYSE Wired. Today, joining me in studio, I have Brian Benedict, co-founder of Eliza. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks, Gemma. It's great to be here.
Thanks for coming on. So tell me, we hear a lot about AI hype, about big, bold bets inside enterprise. You're betting on something smaller, faster, and a little bit more practical, right? Unpack that for me, unpack the Eliza journey.
Sure. So, we really started Eliza for two real reasons. One, empowering the people, which right now is becoming a really big issue for a lot of companies and a lot of the people within them as employees. So we decided to make Eliza really a way to upskill people's skill level within organizations by building AI solutions for them to actually go and be trained on different instances like ChatGPT and others. So right now we feel like that's a huge gap because you can build all these great AI systems, but then if the people don't know actually how to use them and upskill them in terms of the everyday, day-to-day work, then what are we really doing for these companies? So that's been number one. And then number two, it's our ability to actually build practical AI. And as you mentioned, right, it's not always about the most complex system that you can actually build. It's about actually building things that actually remove SG&A takeouts or actually put different applications inside their existing products versus just building something brand new within AI. So these are the things that we're really focused on at Eliza, and I think a lot of the times when you hear the word services and consultancies, it's always being kind of born around a company that's been doing this in other areas, now moving into AI. So we wanted to bring an execution path there. So our team is a bunch of executors building AI for companies.
And tell me, your own background is in go-to-market, right? You come from Hugging Face, a company that's also on a phenomenal journey.
Yeah.
You've clearly seen the belly of the beast in terms of what's working and what's not working inside enterprise. Where do you think the low-hanging fruit is? Where are you seeing, tell me about some use cases or examples where you're seeing real day-to-day impact?
Yeah.
And also, where is this hype narrative really aligned to? Where is the challenge still?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's happening right now in a lot of the departments that you wouldn't think of. So HR, right? Just having the ability for them to use AI in their recruiting and in their own workflow side. It's happening within finance, closing books, FP&A, all of this type of work. So these are great, easy instances in which you can use AI practically to then go out and actually take a lot of stuff off the plate of people that actually have work that they don't really want to do either. It's a lot of busy work and things that people are like, I don't really want to do this work anyways. I'd rather stick to more higher level tasks, but yet I am stuck in manual processing. I'll give you another example. When you actually transfer money from one bank to another, actually switching bank carriers as within financial portfolios, how long does that take? That's a 3 to 4 week exercise of switching the accounts, routing all the information, signing documents. That bank is losing so much money in terms of every day that money sits in pretty much transit. We've built solutions for these types of organizations to help them do that within a day or two, pretty much instantaneously bringing value to the organization. So there's so many different areas that you can pick up that aren't always a threat to the employees of their day-to-day work. So,
and I think when banks are losing money, consumers are losing patience too, right? If we could find out a way to move money from Ireland to the US,
right? There
you
you
can
go.
help me fix that.
Exactly.
But talk to me a little bit about, that kind of cultural element, right? I'm sure that there's a lot of, right now we're at a time when there was a report even just this week announced around, what has happened to the labour force since the introduction of ChatGPT, right, since 2022. And it's kind of scary stuff.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that there's cultural inertia as well as technical inertia.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how you kind of address those conversations with your customers and your soon-to-be customers.
Yeah, it's a great question. So when we look at your average employee at a company, we break them down into 3 different segments. They're either light users, they are right in the middle, or they're power users. And our goal is really to take each one of those user base and bring them to that next level. Let me give you an example. If you're using chat, just using a chat interface, writing different aspects of, emails and summarizations and very simplistic type stuff, we want to take you to the next level of getting you to use APIs or getting you to use an agentic workflow within your day-to-day. Companies right now are struggling because they're getting all these requests from their employees to their AI department saying, I want to build a simple workflow to actually help my department or my business. And the AI groups are saying, this isn't a high-level priority for us. So they're trying to say there should be a DIY component to your day-to-day. And so what we're really helping is enabling that DIY team to say, okay, you can now do this yourself. We can empower you and train you to get that workflow done yourself so that those other AI groups can really work on those bigger tasks at hand.
And talk to me a little bit about size, right? Because it feels as though we're in the next monolithic era of technology, and size seems like a very important factor around speed, agility, circularity.
Yeah.
You know, we see what's happening, you know, with OpenAI and the daily or weekly, you know, change in partnerships that are announced.
Yeah.
You're really betting on something that's kind of smaller and more practical, right? How do you think about that from a competitive perspective? When all of the same infrastructure, costs, challenges, layers, you know, will continue to exist.
Well, I think, you know, why a lot of these, you know, production level pilots are failing is because people aren't taking into account the cost. People aren't taking account these different things. And it's not always about size of model as that, you know, main mechanism. There's a lot of degrees of difficulty that happen to bring something in production. And then a lot of times, even when it's in production, you say, oh wow, that was just really too expensive. So like, for example is, you know, we just moved the company from one of the agentic frameworks that's very popular out there today to AgentKit with OpenAI. And we saw a token count dramatically drop by 80%. We saw the cost drop by about 75%. Same workflow, same everything. So it's not always about, you know, oh, it has to be like a small language model or something. It just has to be just well kind of, you know, thought through in terms of what the goal is. If the ROI of something is only going to be a few $1 million, you don't want to build a system that generates, you know, $6 to $10 million worth of, you know, cost. And I think a lot of times right now people are experimenting with just getting something to work versus getting something fine-tuned to work within the confines of what they're trying to get done. And that's really where we come in and do a lot of legwork.
It's so interesting because even, you know, you mentioned like large financial services, right? I was thinking about this last week to myself, like growing up, I had a credit union account. I'm like, how are credit unions approaching AI, right? Like, how are you competing on that scale if you don't have these huge budgets and huge, you know, technology advocates into you on a daily basis?
Right.
So talk to me a little bit about, you know, I guess the journey you've been on founding this company. I think it's 2025, so you're pretty new. Pretty new. Growing.
Right. Yes.
And exciting kind of, you know, in a very competitive landscape.
Yeah. When I was at RC, one of our first investors was a man by the name of Stephen Garden. Stephen had built 3 different consulting firms, Kalent, PH Data, as well as Onica, which actually sold into Rackspace. And Stephen and I were talking all summer about what we could do to actually like make an impact right now because there are so many companies struggling with this. And so we decided to kind of build this brand, but we didn't want to just build it with just, you know, 5 to 10 people of, you know, forward deploy engineers. So we have some extremely relevant strategic partners that have hundreds of developers that work with us on the AI front so that we can really scale and work with all these organizations. But to your point, when you mention a credit union, those are perfect types of companies we love working with because 1, they are understaffed in this arena. 2, even if they do hire an AI expert, and whatever they're going to pay that person, we could probably build all of their systems for the cost of just bringing that one person in, without even touching it. And I think that's really where, you know, today there's a fundamental gap between skill and hiring versus building, and there's such a quick way that you can build and get some significant value if you have the right team around you.
And tell me a little bit about the name, Eliza.
Yeah.
You know, it's got an interesting origin story that I certainly didn't know.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, Eliza was the first NLP computer that was actually named back at MIT in the 60s. And so we actually paid homage to that by using that naming convention as we built Eliza, which we feel is a new type of AI services business.
A Boston-based company, staying patriotic.
Exactly, that's it.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about mission control.
Yep.
We hear a lot about, you know, kind of an agentic world, agent to agent, a lot of, you know, control sprawl, maybe compliance sprawl too, which I'm sure, again, in a world like credit unions, you know, that we just spoke about is quite important. How do you think about that as kind of a differentiator for like large LLMs versus something that is more proprietary and more practical?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing out there right now is a lot of companies want to keep that control to some degree within their 4 walls. And I think a lot of the solutions today are starting to build around that. I think OpenAI is doing actually a great job of building around that, Anthropic as well, of actually putting more controls and guardrails within their systems. So as we continue to grow, I feel like the model providers, like these giant model providers, are going to get better at this. Now, is it good enough for every enterprise? Well, only time will tell. But there's different things that, you know, you can easily go to build and safeguard around these types of things, whether it's, you know, if you're using your own data, making sure it's within those different 4 walls, if you're putting different evals and guardrails around, you know, different aspects of permissioning for your employees, and obviously you're not going to get access to everyone for every different data set in terms of everything you do because you don't do it today. So there's a lot of things that are being kind of thought about and thought through right now for those types of companies.
And talk to me a little bit about model control. Like, how do you think about that? Like, who owns the brain?
Yeah.
Who owns, if you're working with, a mid-size enterprise, who owns the nervous system and the brain that's, then dictating processes?
Well, I mean, I think the bigger question is not just who owns the brain, but who owns the context, right? Because I think a lot of brands want everything to be done in their context and their voice. So regardless of what the model is, and new models are coming out all the time, I think the context is super important for these companies to own. So when you think about the context of, hey, listen, I'm UBS, and I've had hundreds of years of history of my brain, my tonality, the way in which we like to do business, how we like our employees to interact with our customers. We don't want to lose that to being kind of like whitewashed off into a general purpose model. So how do we make sure that that context, which then we can switch to any models as new elevations come out, which it's like every day right now, there's a new model. You owning that context, I think, is super important for these companies.
And on that point of every day, it seems like there's a new model. It certainly does. It's feeling hard to keep a pace. It feels like everything is built back to on 1 or 2 or 3 LLMs. But what do you say to that when people, I'm sure clients even in these discussions must say to you, like, too many models, not enough differentiators. Like, what are the differentiators?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on what you're trying to solve for. There's a lot of domain adaptation you can do in fine-tuning. Like you mentioned it earlier, right? The brain. Having a model that just has that type of brain, whether it can do reasoning tasks, whether you're actually looking at instruction following, whether you're looking at bringing in tools and function calling, finding the right model that fits that use case is super important. And now it's like you've got a variety. It's like now entering the supermarket era of models. There's just one on the shelf for anything that you're trying to do, whether it's something on an edge device to something that's really powering a research group. So that's the great news. I think it's going to continually evolve, and I think how we think about utilizing those models and context switching with those models is going to continually evolve over time.
And do you think verticals will play a role in that? Like, do you see a role where there will be very specialized, models or at least modular interfaces focused on specific spaces? Is that something you're asked about?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when you talk to a healthcare company and they have very specific language that they use, which is very different than if you're talking to a software company. So I think companies are going to continually try to either inject their own data into these models or use synthetic data to actually help to really fine-tune these models. But I think what you're seeing right now is, you're seeing these model providers and you're seeing kind of the data providers really start digging in on getting, proprietary data to actually go and train on. They're looking for that information right now so that they can make their models just more specific in certain areas.
Tell me about the founder journey. How you're now, are you first time founder?
This is number 2.
Number 2.
Yeah.
But, a lot has changed, I'm sure, since the last time.
Oh, has it? Absolutely.
It's like the Wild West, right?
Well, you know what it was? When we started my last company, RC, in 2023, we had no idea at the pace in which things would actually move, right? I mean, the summer of 2023, everybody was talking about RAG. RAG was this new solution that everyone was betting on, and every conversation was about RAG, and we were talking about small language models. And now I feel like the pace of evolution has continually just evolved with the number of companies out there, the number of different models out there, the number of new techniques and things that companies are trying to do. So yeah, to your point, I think for companies to say, I'm going to wait and hold still until the playing field levels out, you're going to be gone by that happens. I don't know if that's happening in the next few years. I think it's going to continually see massive involvement right now.
It's dog eat dog out there.
It is. I mean, but I thought it was crazy in 2023. It's way more competitive now.
So what's on the roadmap? How do you plan to grow Eliza? Or how do you think about growth and change and...
Yeah.
Fill us in.
It's a great question. A lot of what we're thinking about and doing is really working with, like private equity firms, companies that have very specific needs and tasks around their portfolios. We're doing a lot of work right now and doing testing and working with them today. We do see ourselves growing vertically, right? So we've already hired a domain expert on the insurance side. We have some main experts that we're working with in life sciences, one in financial services. And these people are forging just that expertise that helps with real world applications and experiences coming from really established brands that can say, I've built these solutions other places. I know what we can actually do with your brand. So we're not coming in with just, hey, like let's, put a pie in the sky and say, oh, let's try building this and see what happens. It's all practical real life use cases that we've implemented or done from our expertise. And I think that's really where I see our practice growing.
And what keeps you up at night? What's the key concern? Is it about speed to market? Is it about, really kind of nailing the kind of product set? Like what is it that you are obsessive over right now?
I mean, I think the obsessive part of right now is, finding the companies that are just really ready for this journey. There's a lot of companies that talk a big game that they're ready, but they really aren't. Their data's not ready, the leadership isn't ready. I mean, it's an investment, and we've been down the path with a bunch of companies that we've been lucky that are really ready and are willing to make that investment of time and resources more so than anything else. And it's also, the hard part really is now transitioning the employees to getting them on our side of the fence of saying, hey, this is not to replace you, this is to empower you. So a lot of the work we really do is training the employees so when these systems are built, they know how to functionally use them and can see their kind of path with them. And that's slowly starting to come over time.
Well, I guess people, process, technology, right? Culture needs to lead.
Hasn't changed. Hasn't changed.
Brian, thanks so much for coming on. Fascinating to chat with you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Wish you guys all the best with Eliza and the journey ahead, and hopefully see you back here soon to hear what's happening, right? What's going down.
Sounds good. Thank you, Gemma.
I'm Gemma Allen, here at the New York Stock Exchange with theCUBE and NYSE Wired. This is our Mixture of Experts series. Thanks so much for watching.